Well, thank you, Mike, for joining us for this Pink Friday event on legal and healthcare pathways for LGBTQ community. So for those on the audience who may not know Mike, Mike is the co-head, one of the co-heads of the LGBTQ network at Goldman Sachs. Well, thank you again, Mike. So on Pink Friday, Goldman Sachs, your firm has always been, core member, for Pink Friday. Can you tell us, how this Pink Friday all started, how did it develop over the years?
First of all, thank you for having me. This is a really great opportunity to see the community come together. So Pink Friday started in 2014. So it's quite a while ago now.
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it started when one of our employees, who's a very strong ally of the LGBTQ plus community, he realized one of his colleagues cannot be himself at home.
Oh, at home.
Cannot come out at home. But instead, he was out at work. And then so he actually felt that work was a safe space. So from there, he also realized that even though the work was a safe space, there was actually a lack of LGBTQ plus visibility. So you don't you can't tell looking at different people whether they're LGBTQ plus. There wasn't very much visible symbols of support. So he decided to wear a pink t-shirt. So he and a bunch of LGBTQ plus individuals and colleagues decided to, we're going to wear pink t-shirts to support, be a visible, symbol, visibility for LGBTQ plus people and inclusion. So it's just a small group of them, and they were on the trading floor. And then it just expanded, and then the entire trading floor wore pink, and they started from there, and that's how it started.
Entire trading floor. Wow, I can just imagine. Actually, why pink?
Why pink? Because, so I get this question a lot actually. It's because, during the Nazi era in the concentration camps, a lot of the groups, that were, in the concentration camp were classified by a symbol. So for the LGBTQ plus community, it was a pink triangle. So we chose pink because it reclaimed that, to reclaim that symbol of oppression.
There's actually a very, serious and strong message behind it, even though today we are so happy and pink.
Exactly.
Okay, so, so 10 years, can you tell us a little bit, maybe what's the most memorable, I'm sure there's lots of very, very happy, moments, but can you share with maybe, one of the more memorable experience of Pink Friday in recent years?
So it actually was a very recent event. So it was the Hong Kong legal community. So the community was looking for an opportunity to create a photo op to support Pink Friday. So, a lot of the law firms here are, smaller in scale. So they would have, 2 or 3 people who are really active in the LGBTQ plus space. So together people really make an impact. And then people really wanted to come together. So the organizer, found a space for the group to take a picture for everyone, to bring all the law firms together. And last minute, the authority said, actually the land that you're going to use belongs to another department, so you need additional approval, which is hard to procure last minute. So that threw the whole project into disarray and into question.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was really difficult. And then so we put out So we put out a distress call, to the community, looking for a space, looking for people to help, because we're going to have so many people gathering, and the gay games answered the call, Lisa. Yes. And then it was, at that time, the gay games was a historic first time in APAC, was in Hong Kong. And, so we did the photo op in the, Gay Games Village, which is right on the waterfront up here. Yes. And then, so the atmosphere was really electric, historic. And so that was a very memorable moment for me because it's the community coming together last minute, pulling together to find solutions, helping each other out.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really nice to hear. Yeah. Hey, I'm just wondering, obviously Goldman Sachs, right? Your firm has always been the core member. What are some of the, I've heard there were some interesting events yesterday at the Pink Friday event.
Yes. So in the run-up, we purposely organized our LGBTQ plus quiz night. So our famous Q night yesterday on the eve of Pink Friday. So what we had a surprise guest that we flew in from Singapore, one of our colleagues who's a drag performer who emceed the event.
Oh, fun.
So we raised funds for LGBTQ plus charity. So it was a very good time. It's a very good time. And then today we plan to have the Harmonics, which is the LGBTQ plus choir in Hong Kong, perform for us. And we'll have celebrations all over APAC. So in Singapore, for example, we will have a panel talk. Singapore office is going to bring in speakers in the ESG investing community. So they'll talk about how does ESG investing relate to diversity and inclusion.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So it'd be a very variety of celebrations.
Yeah. Because I think one point you brought up was very, very good was, that we all know, right? In studies as well as your colleagues, own experiences that, having a safe and supportive, inclusive workspace, where people can be themselves, really increase productivity. And I think particularly now when Hong Kong, we are talking about, we really need to attract and retain talents and things like that, right? So, I'm just kind of wondering, what do you think, you would like, other businesses, to do to support Pink Friday or maybe the LGBTQ community at large generally?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a good question. I think, first of all, one of the beauty of Pink Friday is that it's so flexible. So different companies are a different journey. And the D&I journey. So they would tailor the program to their needs. So it could be just, a simple event to highlight visibility. It could be something more engaging to foster education. So there's a range. But then I think collectively, what we really do send out the message is that the Hong Kong employers, businesses, the community in general do care about LGBTQ plus inclusion. I think a lot of people don't realize that Hong Kong has anti-discrimination laws, but it doesn't cover sexual orientation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then so private employers, organizations that, employs all these LGBTQ plus workforce need to make sure they have the internal policies and the support and the culture that's necessary to support the LGBTQ plus community.
So I guess what would you hope to see in the future?
I hope to see a future where we would have, LGBT progress on all fronts, so from marriage to, to anti-discrimination rights, to a lot of acceptance, from and inclusion in the community. So that's what I hope to see, because we still are a little bit behind compared to other parts of the world. So hopefully we will get there quite soon. We're making a lot of progress. There's a lot of passion and drive on the ground in the community.
Yeah, I think that's why Pink Friday is a great event, because you have all these companies coming together, everyone coming together to celebrate, right? And it's been 10 years, it's not easy.
Yeah, exactly. Because when we started in 2014, it was just a GS event, on the trading floor. And then it went to different, divisions, and it went to India, Europe. In 2022, it was the first time our New York office joined, because it's an Organic Asia initiative, and then and in 2019, we first invited outside, different organizations outside of GS to join. And then that year we started with 60. Last year we had over 100 different organizations. So it really grew. And I think, we have people from Japan now, Singapore, all over APAC celebrating. Sometimes we have a hashtag and then, Pink Friday Pride, and you click into it. Sometimes I see events that I don't even recognize, people celebrating in different parts of the world.
Why not, right?
Yeah,
why not?
so.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Mike, for joining us again today, and happy Pink Friday.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and happy Pink Friday to everyone.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So for this session of Pink Friday event, I'm very happy to have Frances Tsang, who is a family law lawyer, at Hugill. Thank you, Frances.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you taking out of your busy practice of family law to come speak with us today. Before we get into the nitty gritty, can you give us a little bit of a high level overview, of on the legal side of things, for LGBTQ rights and inclusion in Hong Kong, maybe for the last 10, 15 years?
Okay, sure. So for the last 10, 15 years, I think the first landmark case will be WV Register of Marriage. So it is a case in which a transgender woman who has already had her HKID changed was banned from getting married to her partner at the time, who was of the opposite sex, and that was because of her birth gender. So in that case, the court ruled that she should be able to marry in her assigned gender that was changed in her HKID. And then after that, we had a series of cases that purportedly elevated the status of LGBT people in Hong Kong. And firstly, we have the Infinger case, and which also Edgar Ng, which is about public housing and the home ownership scheme in Hong Kong. And in this case, they were allowed to purchase home ownership scheme housing or apply for public housing, just like any other opposite sex married couple. Yes, and then we also have also the QT case, which is in which the applicant was allowed to bring his same-sex married partner to Hong Kong on a dependent visa, and the immigration director before rejected his application, and the court ruled that this was discriminatory and unconstitutional. And we also later have the Henry Lee case, which is in relation to inheritance provision. And in that case, same-sex married couples was allowed the same rights as opposite-sex married couples in terms of the rights to apply for inheritance provision from the estate under the Intestate Estates Ordinance, and also the inheritance provision for Family Independence Ordinance. And then we also have the AABB case, which is essentially about a separation between same-sex married couple. And this is the first case which gave the non-biological mother the same rights as the biological mother in terms of separation, and she was given joint custody and joint care and control. Yes, then very recently, actually last year, we have the Shamsi-Git case, which is, I think, a huge joy for the community, in which the CFA actually said that it is unconstitutional to not allow an alternative framework for LGBT people to get married in Hong Kong because this is discriminatory. But as to whether the alternative framework means civil union or civil partnership, we don't know yet. But the court has made clear that it's not a marriage per se, but it is something that is alternative to a marriage. And also we have the NFNR case, which is right after the Shamsi-Git case, and it relates to retrospective IVF, which should be more relevant to lesbian couples. So in that case, the mother who provided the egg was given the same parental status and rights as the mother who carried the baby and gave birth to the baby.
Interesting.
So we do have bits and pieces of rights being advanced in the past 10 years, but there is no a single judgment which allows them same rights as opposite sex married couples or other so-called the majority in the society. But we do have advancements here and there, and this happens because there are people bringing out applications, and we have cases addressing the specific problems that they face, the discrimination that they face in specific contexts.
Yeah, that seems like we have certainly make some advancements in terms of LGBTQ protection. But at the same time, hearing from you, I was getting a little bit dizzy myself. One court case, two court cases. It's almost like a dozen court cases.
Yes. That's actually very confusing because I think right now we do lack for LGBT people, if if you're not so legally sensitive, you don't actually know where your rights are. And that is a lot of the problems that we see currently in the legal practice. It's because, you have case here and there, but people don't have like they don't know where their rights are in terms of like, this particular right or this particular application. So it's very difficult for, commoners to try to navigate all these cases. And we do see that there is a need for change, that perhaps it would be better, hopefully, after Shamsi Kit, we'll have some really sort of alternative framework which governs, the totality of the rights, or give them like a once and for all sort of, provision on, what your rights are. So I think that will be a lot clearer and a lot easier for a lot of the LGBT people.
Yeah, because it's like basically by default, the rights granted, basically the law has a differential treatment based on your relationship status, and so it's almost like every little bit chipping away.
Yes.
I just kind of curious. You mentioned a little bit the two things, right? You talk about the same-sex marriage, the Shamsi Kit case. So right now, what is the current status? Like, what if I were, LGBTQ couple, I want to get married? What realistic options do I have?
That is actually a very good question, because we do have a case saying that, it's unconstitutional not to allow an alternative framework. But for now, we actually don't have, even a roadmap for that alternative framework, because I think the decision came out in September or end of last year. The government was given 2 years to come up with a plan on how to realize this. But for now, it's more than a year has passed, and we still don't have any news yet. So I think it's pretty much still undecided as to what we're gonna have. So right now, sadly, if you want to marry your same-sex partner, it's still impossible in Hong Kong. So you will have to get married elsewhere. And it's curiously, it's a lot of the statutes or laws giving rights to same-sex married couples is dependent upon you getting married. So this means that if you can't simply announce that we are in a loving relationship in Hong Kong, but we can't get married, so we'll live as a married couple. That's impossible. In order to get protection to those rights, you have to fly overseas and get married. Yes, and this actually imposed quite a burden upon the same-sex couples. Not everybody has the money to get married overseas.
And some places may not let you get married if you are not the citizen.
Exactly. So this is actually a great, a difficulty for people. Like, if you want to get legal protection, you first need to get the funds and the ability to get married elsewhere, and then you come back for the for the rights. So I mean, this is something that we need to address.
Ah, okay. Actually, I heard a while ago the Association of Family Lawyers, you recently had a session on modern families, right? You cover like IVF, surrogacy, lots of issues. So can you share a little bit, what are some of the hot topics that the lawyers are talking about?
I think a great hot topic is surrogacy, which is very relevant to same-sex married couple, and also actually opposite sex couples who might not be able to give birth. And in fact, the surrogacy law in Hong Kong is quite stringent right now. It does not allow surrogacy which is commercial, essentially, which there is like a middleman or an agent who made profit from that surrogacy arrangement. So, but I mean, for what I see is that there is the takeaway from that conference is that there is there's this passion from people of a certain community to have a family and to have the next generation. And I mean, in terms of the current economic climate, or the global economic climate, this is something that should be encouraged. And because we often get complaints of low birth rates and poor economy, and this is something that we should encourage. And so I believe that there's more awareness in that sense. And also, certainly, the legal community is getting more and more aware and more eager to help those people who might not fit into what the legal framework that we have now, and who are facing certain difficulty, whether it be adoption, surrogacy, or marriage, divorce. So I believe, there is this constant call from the legal community to address injustice. So, for example, a very starking example would be if you get married in the UK to your same-sex partner, and you're not a UK citizen, but you got married, and you came back to Hong Kong for a living, if you want to get divorced, is virtually impossible because you can't get divorced in Hong Kong. But as a non-UK citizen, can you get divorced in the UK? That is a question. So, I mean, if you can get married but not get divorced, that is a huge problem. I mean, like more than 50% of the marriage now ends up in a divorce. So, I mean, there is this awareness from the legal community that something needs to change. And I think the huge takeaway from that conference is that the times is moving. We need to advance ourselves, and the law needs to change.
Yeah, so basically it seems like the law is at odds or a dissonance as to the social reality of we have many different shapes or forms of families, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, like, what would you like to see, like, in an ideal world? Like, you were saying, the Court of Final Appeal have given 24 months, right? 2 years for the government. So 1 year have passed. We have another 12 months. What would be the ideal situation?
I think the ideal situation is, I think, firstly, I don't speak only for the LGBT community, but also for people who might not fit into the traditional, opposite sex families, so people who can't have children of their own, people who perhaps because of certain pressure aren't able to marry in Hong Kong or whatever. I think that it's important for the government to notice that there are these sort of people who are not addressed by the current legal framework, who are not protected. So I think, of course, in the future, I do wish to see that there is, this equality and rights. So we're talking about equality. We're not talking about certain privileges for certain minorities. I think people in the community are asking for simply equal treatment, and I think equal treatment in this sense means that, firstly, we're no longer on a case-by-case basis on whether we advance certain rights. It means that, as people of different sexual orientation, we should be treated the same as people who are, who likes the opposite sex. And also, you should not, even for heterosexual families, who are, in certain different scenarios, different circumstances, they should be treated the same as what a normal heterosexual family should be like. So I think we're looking for a framework, a general recognition from the law to grant equal rights to these people. And I also think that from a societal point of view, I hope that it's good that we have more awareness now, but certainly we can still, do a lot better in terms of, diversity, inclusion, providing a friendly workplace for people of different, cultural representations, different sexual representations to, just be in a community and enjoy, the workplace, the society. So I think this is what I really want to see in the coming years.
Thank you, Frances, for joining us today, for the Pink Friday event. Is there anything you would like to say to the audience?
Thank you for having me, and happy Pink Friday, and good luck to our strive for equality. And yes, thank you for today.
Thank you, Frances. Thank you again, Alfred and Nick, for joining us on this Pink Friday event on the legal and healthcare pathways for LGBTQ individuals. So for those of you in the audience who may not know Alfred and Nick, so Alfred is the partner at law firm Hugill, and then Nick is a medical doctor by training, as well as one of the co-founders of Alongside in Hong Kong. So Nick, to begin, can you tell us a little bit, what is Alongside? Why do you have to start Alongside?
Okay, sure. Thank you very much for the introduction. And Alongside is a relatively new social enterprise which I established in the 2023 with two of my another two co-founders. We established this organization is to tailor the services or end-of-life services for the community, for the LGBTQIA community, to provide one-stop life and death services, including advanced planning, like drafting a will, like during an Advance Medical Directive, or helping them to draft an enduring power of attorney. And also, we also deal with the aftermath, like the bereavement support, for example, a funeral and burial, or other grief counseling and basically it is about life and death for the LGBTQ community. I think why we are going to establish this organization or have this kind of mission is that there are lots of issues or challenges that the community is facing, especially in Hong Kong. And because the same-sex marriage is not recognized, so basically they have no legal status with regards to any things happen in case of death. Therefore, our name is called Alongside because we want to walk alongside with the community. During the journey, that should be one of the most painful journey that because, for example, their beloved has passed away. So we are going to do that by providing those services to them. And our discourse is for them to maintain a lifelong autonomy, which means that they just do what they would like to do, no matter in estate planning or how would like to live at the very end of their life in the medical directions. And that's basically what we are doing, and is our mission is.
Yeah. So, Alfred, you want to say something?
Allow me to say, what you're doing is actually very meaningful because our community needs someone like you who walk alongside with them, especially when traditional culture and value may not be entirely applicable to our community. We are lucky to be in this community that we're not confined by the norm or the social culture, but to establish our own ritual to celebrate our life need particular care. And you are walking alongside with us.
Yeah, I think not just me. I think all the allies like Alfred or Lisa has been doing a great job and doing a lot of things to the community. But why we would like to focus on the end of life issue because this aspect is largely neglected or ignored. Just say Alfred said, people would like to avoid talking about death, especially for the community. We will celebrate our life very vividly, like in Prime Month or something like that. But we try to avoid talking about death, which is a little bit sad. But the problem is if we don't plan ahead or we don't think about it, there will be a lot of issues left over. But not to you because we already lost the consciousness or even passed away. But the aftermath is to be dealt with those we are really in love with. And that's the pain point.
I want to pick back up on that statement about, the self-autonomy, that point there, because, you were saying, maybe if we don't plan, then because, currently the legal framework in Hong Kong doesn't really recognize I guess any alternative family structures, right, other than the heteronormative families. So what would happen, if I don't have a will or I don't, and I ran into a car accident? What happened to me?
I think Alfred can supplement the legal aspect later on. But why we are going to talk about autonomy is that for the community, a simple phrase is that we like to do or live the way that we would like to do or live. For example, no matter in gender identity or sexuality identity. But the problem is because of the legal framework, the outside legal framework is not very friendly to this community. Like you said, they do not recognize the same sex or other than heterosexual marriage. So when we are losing our consciousness or we are unable to make our own decision, no matter we fall into medical illness or suffer from severe dementia or even pass away, our legacy, our estate, our medical decision will be determined by the external legal framework, which is not friendly. And most of the time, our same-sex partner would be very likely to be excluded from the decision making or the legacy inheritance in case of will or estate inheritance. I think,
So what are the legal tools available for people now?
I guess the legal tools that people commonly refer to include like will, advance health directives, or enduring power of attorney. But I want to highlight that these tools are commonly available, but it's particularly important in our community because our community are prone to attack, allow me to say. when the legal relationship itself is not entirely recognized, in the sense that you may say that it's recognized that now with Henry Lee coming forward, the case is still being determined by the Court of Final Appeal, and marriage seems to be recognized or not recognized, there's still a lot of debate. Which lead to a lot of confusion, even within our communities. What's the importance of getting married?
Yeah.
And if you're not married, what's next? What would happen if something happened? There are a lot of confusion here. That's why we always emphasize the importance of having your plan in place and never wait until the last minute. This is particularly the case when, for example, two same-sex partners, either they're married or not, when one passed away, the other one, whether he or she would be inheriting, and how does other family feel about him or her inheriting the whole estate? Making a will should be the most simple way, but it's not watertight. Will is something very fragile to attack, because when someone intends to attack, it becomes a long legal proceedings that those who are trying to prove the will has to go through a long process. Not to mention it is very expensive.
Yeah.
And it can be something that can be used against for someone's advantage. And trust me, I've seen a lot. And that is the reason why it has to be done properly, carefully, and well in advance. And that's what we want to highlight. And that is also the reason why I say what you are doing is actually very meaningful, because you are helping our community to shield against foreign attack.
Yeah, I think Alfred make a very good point is that first of all, there's lots of misunderstanding or lack of understanding in the community about what legal tools that are available and why we can utilize this tool for our own advantage or protect ourselves or our partner. And this is the part that alongside is working on this about public education. That's what we are doing now is to educate the community about there's such kind of legal tools available. We can use no matter no matter court case, how it turns to. These tools are still useful and legally recognized.
Yeah, because I hear a lot of people would say, right, oh, I'm so young, or I don't have money, why would I need a will? And, or people would say, so basically there are many reasons, right? People may not want to, may kind of postpone and delay, right?
Procrastination,
yes.
with excuses.
Yes, And I want to understand from you, Alfred, you were saying that, we should do it well in advance. Why should we do it? Why can't we wait till, maybe when I'm much older, for example?
Because, first of all, you never know. I'm very sorry to say, but this is the reality.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've seen a lot of cases that people died all of a sudden. And sudden death is the worst kind of death to the family members because they're not prepared for it. When they're not prepared for it, they get into this confusion, and there are a lot of things that can be used against each other. Because different family members may have different expectations. And these expectations may not have been met with the current legal framework. Just for example, two same-sex partners, one of them passed away and another one is the dependent. They're never married. Suddenly they're disinherited under the intestacy regime because of their relationship, cohabitation relationship, not being recognized or protected under the law. What they can do, of course, they can sue against the estate under the Inheritance Provision for Family Independence Ordinance, what we call 481. But is it the right way to do? Can we avoid it? This is like the basic 101 of planning. To avoid the same-sex partner from being disinherited from the family wealth that the two of you accumulated together. There's the 101. And then we're talking about something that could be more complicated, like couples with children. When they're seeing the same-sex marriage, are they having the same right with their children? It could be that only one of the partners has right to the children because of their biological link or their adoption link. There are a lot of different relationships that can be created, and for same-sex partner, it's particularly complicated. And then let's not go to the more complicated relationship, let's say throuple, right? And this is the reason why you need someone who understands what is the relationship and how is it different from the ordinary heterosexual relationship to help you go along and plan ahead in order to achieve the ultimate harmony. Avoid any dispute that may come along when something suddenly happens.
I think I echo with Alfred saying that this is very unexpected. Life is very unexpected. As a medical doctor, I work in the hospital authority. I saw a lot of sudden death. Being young is not an excuse to avoid sudden death. And there is no time for you to think about it. And at the end of the day, the aftermath is being undealt with. And the problem is your beloved one, when you are alive or when you're conscious, will suffer. And this is the point why we would like to have a early planning. And the early planning just said, Alfred pointed out a very good point, is that the complicated family dynamics is a reason and the specific challenges faced by the LGBTQ partner, which may not be faced by the same equally to the heterosexual partners. Because most of the time, if their immediate family is not acknowledging or recognizing their relationship, it is very likely that dispute will arise when anything happens. And when their, say for example, their son or daughters pass away or suddenly suffer from a traffic accident going into hospital, and they felt that this is due to the same-sex partner not caring good of his or her son, and the anger will be shifted to the partner. And this actually creates a lot of dispute. And the picture will go very ugly.
Ugly very fast.
Yes. And the modern time, actually, the life journey is evolving. And what we see is more often people have a longer lifespan, but they may not be able to look after themselves. And they rely on each other as partners to look after each other. But when one party passed away, the one is left alone. And there are some very heavy questions that need to be asked. For example, what is going to happen? Let's say that I'm relying on my partner's care and he passed away, he goes before me. What should we do? What should I do? Who is going to look after me? No matter how much money you have, when there are some very life issues that is challenging, it has to be arranged in advance. And these are the heavy questions that you would have to ask your clients when you're going alongside with them in their estate planning. What is actually going to happen?
Socialization is a very common among the LGBTQ community. First of all, not everyone in the community got a partner. And even one got a partner, just as Alfred said, one will pass away earlier, except they die together. Then at the end of the day, 99% of the LGBT community in Hong Kong have no children to take care of them.
Correct.
And at the end of the day, one will be living alone. So this is the past that is a very difficult question and very specific challenge that this community is actually facing.
So how do actually, that I often come across this issue even for my own self when I was driving my will. So okay, who should I name as an executor? So what's the advice? Like, because I have no children, usually people find a younger family members or someone you trust, right? What are some of the options for people?
Well, when we're talking about who to choose as executor, the most common situation is when one party passed away and the partner is inheriting the whole wealth, he or she would become the executor. That's the simple step. But then if we are talking about, I have something more to consider, for example, what if he or she is becoming an advanced age that require that cannot look after himself?
Yeah, because like a partner, one of them died first, and then the other one, the surviving one.
And therefore, our advice is always to find someone that you can trust as a plan B, like a contingent executor. If there is no one in your family who is willing to look after, take on this heavy role, professional will be the ultimate choice.
I see.
We've seen couples, childless couples, who have done this planning with each other as the executor and beneficiary, with professional as contingent executor. The purpose of the professional is to come in to look after that person financially, the other half financially. Well, we cannot look after the other half on a daily basis, but at least the professional's role would be to ensure that the other half will have the care that they need, and you will be looked after properly.
So if I just want to see, like, of course we spend a lot of time just now to talk about the wills and aspects. Like, so as part of the estate planning, is that all I need? I just get a will and I'm set, or are there other things I should, consider and plan for? As I guess as Hong Kong is obviously an aging society, right? More and more people, getting older. Earlier we were just talking with another guest. He was saying, in 2040, in about 20 years' time, 40% of Hong Kong's population will be over 65. It's like, oh my God, that's a really high percentage. What are other things that, as an LGBTQ individual I should consider or educate myself about to prepare myself to plan?
I think according to my experience here alongside, a lot of clients are very concerned, not just for the will. It's because will is something that only be useful when one passed away. It's relatively not their own need because it's legacy giving. Absolutely. But the problem is when they are still alive, but they are not able to make any decision, no matter it's financial decisions or medical decision. They would like someone to respect their wish when they are still okay. So that's to come to the other two legal tools that we would like to talk about is the enduring power of attorney and the Advance Medical Directive, which is more concerned about the internal need of oneself. Because these two tools are not just applicable for one past after the afterlife, but when they are still alive, but they are not able to take care of themselves. And especially like you said, getting old, or suffering from dementia or suffering from some serious medical illness which render his mental capacity not being able to make their own choices. And that's why we are also advocating the use of the other two legal tools to protect themselves.
So explain a little bit more about...
Can you explain what are these two legal tools?
Okay, sure. Just correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm sure that you know very well what's the EPOA.
No, I'm really shy to talk about law in front of a partner.
No.
Okay. According to my understanding, enduring power of attorney is a legal document that is useful when one falls into a medically incapacitated state to appoint an attorney, that is someone you trust, to take care of your financial stuff when you are not able to. Because, for example, if one owns a lot of properties or have a lot of bank accounts or money in their own bank, when he or she becomes mentally incapable, for example, suffering from stroke or dementia, something like that, they cannot use their money, but they have bills to pay. For example, the medical bills, maybe they have a dog or a cat to keep them. So this actually creates lots of financial burden to support themselves and also the dependents. But the problem is when the money is under the name of the person who is now not being able or losing the capacity to do those kind of financial decisions, then the problem is the financial burden cannot be relieved because no one can steal the money from your bank account or no one can sell your house on your behalf to pay your medical bills. And that's the time when the EPA become useful, as when we appoint someone to be our attorney and make our decision on our behalf, but only confined to the financial decisions, so that we can keep our well-being, like paying the medical bills, repaying the mortgage, so that the bank would not take away my home where I'm still living. So I think it's quite a powerful legal document with a lot of authority enforced upon or entrusted upon on someone that we really trust. Yeah, I think it's the very important piece of legal documents or legal tools that one would I'm falling apart. I'm not able. At least don't throw me away on the street or don't. Yeah.
The only thing that I would like to add is that this is a piece of document that must be witnessed by a doctor and a lawyer. And in terms of LGBT community, especially when they have no children, obviously one question would be, let's say, for example, you sign an EPOA with me as the attorney. I would be able to look after your financial affairs after you become incapacitated. But what if I'm also incapacitated? When both of us are in the elderly home, we're looking at each other like we're the first day that we met, but then we don't know what's going on. Who is going to look after us? And this is again what we said earlier about whether there would be other family members who are willing to take over the responsibility.
So you can have an alternative.
Correct, an alternative or a professional.
I see.
Yeah, this is like the ultimate plan. What will happen when both of us cannot look after each other or ourselves anymore and rely on external care? Yeah.
So a lot to think about, really, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also for the Advance Health Directives, I guess to explain a little bit, it is still at the moment a form prescribed, a lot of time prescribed by the hospital authority. We follow the form prescribed by them. But the use is limited to certain life-changing events, like, for example, do not resuscitate, or no intrusive medical treatment to be administered. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are limits to these kind of applications. And my take of Advanced Health Directive is basically to give an assurance to the doctor who is going to save you that you are okay not to administer certain treatment on me. It is not just to express your wishes over what sort of medical treatment you would like to receive. It's not that down to these details.
Yeah, it's correct. And when we talk about the Advanced Medical Directive, it is now not yet legislated because the bill for the AMD, Advanced Medical Directive, is still in the legislative process. And hopefully we can get after the third reading and make it become a law so that the AMD will get this statutory power. At this moment, it's governed by the common law. As Alfred said, the hospital authority would have prescribed the form for someone to pre-make the medical decisions when they are falling very sick. The problem is that this only applies to very late stage of illnesses. For example, someone from an incurable cancer, we call it a terminal illnesses, so that when during the very last bit of the life, that is the heart is stopped beating, then do not resuscitate me. This is one of the things that we can do. That is to refuse certain life-sustaining treatment, and CPR or cardiopulmonary resuscitation is one of the most invasive life-sustaining treatment that one would get when they're falling in the very last bit of their life. And other life-sustaining treatment include like intubation, putting a tube through your mouth to your throat to keep you breathing, mechanical ventilation, or like putting a nasogastric tube to keep you feeding the nutrition and hydration. And this is a very a lot of
personal and sensitive.
Because euthanasia is not legal in Hong Kong and it won't be, and so AMD is not equal to euthanasia. You cannot say I would like to receive a lethal drug to stop my. No, it's not illegal. This is murder.
So who can actually make a decision, a medical decision for me if I am, mentally, incapacitated?
Actually, only the doctors who are taking care of you can make this decision for you, because there's a very a lot of conflict of interest. You cannot rely on your wife or your son or daughter who may be who may inheriting your estate. So in Hong Kong, there's no one that can make a decision on someone's behalf if the one that is above 18 years old and also mentally capable beforehand. There's no legal guardian when he is still awake. So the problem is when one falls into mentally incapacitated, that is the medical doctor in charge would be governing, determining what kind of treatment that you are going to receive. So in AMD, it's in document to document your wish. When you are going to a very late stage of life, my wish is not to prolong my suffering and just let me go in case I'm to the extent of very irreversible and very late stage. And this is this piece of information and this piece of legal document is going to do. I think my clients are very concerned not just for themselves to reduce suffering. Is that I think they write this paper and make the decision. It is a relief to their family members because many family members would not like to take this heavy responsibility to say, okay, just stop everything. But when we write it down beforehand, they would just respect our wish. And this is a relief to a lot of family members.
Yeah.
I guess there are two aspects to it as well. The first thing is, because of the limitation of the Advance Health Directives, whether the wishes of an individual can be effectively communicated by only this document. For example, what you've just said, open heart surgery. Of course, okay, yes, I don't want to have open heart surgery. But it goes beyond that. There are certain other treatments that are not covered by the Advanced Health Directive. What's your intention? What's your wishes? Have you thought about it? Like, ultimately, do you just don't want to suffer? But when there is a chance that you will recover, you want to receive the treatment? Or I simply do not want to suffer. What's the point of having all this painful treatment? And at the end, I'm resuscitated, but I'm half awake or half deaf, right? These are more intricate or imminent questions that need to be asked and planned at the time when you can sit down with your partner and talk about this. And the second part would be, how would your partner be involved in the process? Because when you're not married or when your relationship is not recognized to the other family members, especially in Hong Kong traditional Chinese society, when the other half is only acknowledged as a roommate or a very good friend or best friend, these people may not be recognized by the rest of the family. And when you are in critical condition, would he or she be involved in the process as a significant other, irrespective whether you're married or not? And these are the parts that require advanced planning to avoid the suffering of your beloved one when you're going through a process that you cannot determine yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously in the best situation, you know, if my family by blood, let's put it this way, you know, we have a good relationship with, you know, my partner or my family of choice, you know, in stressful situation, I can already see there can potentially be conflict, and then having a document, medical directive to at least express my wishes, you know, so that be known for everyone would be helpful. But like, what if it is a situation where, you know, especially, you know, like if I'm not even out to my family, and even if I have this document, is there a way for me to make sure, you know, that the wishes of my, you know, I have clearly communicated to my partner so that my partner knows, you know, what I want? Is there a way for me to make sure my partner is being consulted or you know, to help explain, you know, what is my wishes? Is there a way for me to document it or to make it a little bit more respected, so to speak, when I can't say it myself?
I think it needs your partner to speak up upon the medical professionals to explicitly state that you are the one that he or she very really care about, and you are the one who know what she or he think when she and they are still awake or being able to make the decision. And you have, for example, an overseas marriage may mean something, may mean something. But of course, this is the problem of the general acceptance of the LGBTQ or same-sex couple relationship in the medical professional field. I think in this current status, this is still under acceptance. The acceptance is still not desirable, so that there is a lot of misunderstanding. For example, not being able to involved in the discussion in how the medical decision should be made. And it is not just because of the complicated family dynamics, it's also because of the acceptance from the medical professionals, whether they recognize the same-sex partner having the same status as a heterosexual couple. It's very normal or very common for the nurses or the doctors to recognize someone's wife or husband as their next of kin, so that they will add whatever, they will talk to them, no matter what. But whether they would have recognize a same-sex partner, this is a question. And this is one of the things that we would like to do. The public education does not only educating the LGBTQ community about the use of those legal tools. We have to educate the legal or medical professionals for this kind of people exist, and their challenges exist. First, you need to recognize it. And in your career, you are bound to encounter more and more such kind of questions. With these changes, it's only be able to change the overall atmosphere when the acceptance being increased.
Do you actually see, like in law school or in medical school, do they actually talk about modern families or alternative family structures and stuff?
Well, I guess I'm a little bit too old.
But
this
like
kind of modern
your
family education
in your trainee solicitor when you talk to them.
I don't think that there has been enough education, to be honest, and this is the reason why there are a lot of potential issues and conflict. The only things that I would like to say is that if there is a dispute, and you need to go to court, you need to talk to professionals. And there are leeway for you to assert your right. Sometimes it is about how you can make a fight and where you can make a fight and how you can do it, navigate all these complex legal issues. And hopefully this is not necessary, but if it's necessary, there's someone can help you on this.
Yeah, okay.
And
I'm
you? Also too old to have any training about
You look
the
very
inclusivity in the medical school. But I think, to be honest, the acceptance for the diversity or inclusion in the medical field is really undesirable. For example, alongside has collaborated with the CHK and Hong Kong U to conduct a research about the LGBT community aspect on the end-of-life issue and whether they really faced any discrimination from the professional service provider, including legal, medical, teachers, social work, all kind of professional service provider. And there is over a quarter of the respondent reported discrimination when they are receiving such kind of professional service. And among them, medical professionals rank second. There are 44% of the respondents who responded discrimination said that they face discrimination from medical professionals. This is alarming, I think, because medical professionals should be very empathetic and caring. But indeed, I don't think they are malicious or intentional discrimination. The self-report discrimination is from a lack of understanding and the lack of sensitivity towards the gender or the sexuality issue. But that is the issue that we need to face, and that's why we have to promote inclusive healthcare to make them understand, acknowledge the existence of this community, which is a sizable community in Hong Kong. And with the recent legal changes in the legal landscape, for example, a upcoming alternative framework or the change in the policy of the gender marker in the Hong Kong ID, they are bound to encounter more and more clients or patients with such, I don't say it's a problem, but such background. And they have to be sensitive and they have to be more inclusive to when they're providing their services and medical care.
This is exactly what we're doing here today, right? Educating the public about our society, our community, their particular needs, and how to address it with care and empathy.
Yeah. I mean, this is a social reality, I guess, basically, right? Actually, I want to pick back up on that research you mentioned, the CUHK research. So that's quite, I've never heard of actually research on LGBTQ community on end of life. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Because this is the Asia's first similar research, and this is a scientific research collaborating with the Hong Kong U and CUHK.
Okay.
We conducted the research asking over 500 respondents from the LGBTQ community to see
in Hong Kong,
local, and all Chinese community, because we conducted the research in Chinese. So we haven't published the result yet, but the data that I just talked about is the prelim data. And I think this is quite an interesting study because there are a lot of aspects that we can look into those data to see what are the issues and what is with the evidence supporting the issue. That is what we are having, what the problems that we are having. Everyone asks about the data and what is your research and what is your scientific basis. And that's why we conducted the research to provide a sound scientific basis for all our claims.
I see. When do you expect the report to come out?
I think we are analyzing the data. We are in the progress of analyzing and should be able to provide a more published data or the journal in early 2025.
Okay, so Q1 next year. Yeah. Okay. So with that, we're really looking forward to that report research data. Okay.
And we are going to host a conference in the Q1 of 2025, and this is also the first Hong Kong conference in LGBT end of life issue that we will just talk about the issues that we just mentioned, and we target the medical, legal, social work, healthcare professionals as the potential audience of this conference to educate about the specific challenges and need of the LGBTQ community when facing end-of-life issues. And we hopefully will publish the research data in the conference also.
Oh, wow, that's exciting. We will look forward to it. Yeah. Because I can imagine as I age, probably, what I will need is doctors, nurses, right? Social service, as well as the legal profession, you cannot avoid it. So this is going to be a very meaningful, topic. So thank you very much, for your time. This is very helpful and insightful, and thank you for joining us again. If anything you want to tell the audience on this Pink Friday,
just to wind up a little bit, that is, estate planning or wealth planning is beyond the three tools, the world's EPO and Advance Health Directive. We call it Ping On Sample. It's beyond that. It should be a holistic experience, and I believe that alongside can help our community navigating through this process, which can be quite painful.
Yeah, indeed. But I think you have mentioned a very good point, is that communication is really the key. No matter it's communication between your partners or communication with your immediate family, and only communication when you can avoid dispute, not the legal tools. The legal tools can give some evidence or give some backup, but nothing can replace a good communication to talk about what you want.
Which is exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I think so too. Yeah, the communication, as well as I think just even ourselves, coming to terms with growing old, life and death, right? Big topics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Nick, do you have anything you want to share with the audience on Pink Friday?
Thank you, Alfred, for inviting me to talk about our initiative and to share the experience as a legal professional. Hopefully we should really get the message beyond our community, because discrimination is come from outside our community. We need to educate the greater public about the existence and the challenges, not just doing the promotion within our community. I think it's the most important thing we need to.
Having allies, right, is very, very important. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So thank you, Aaron, for joining us on this Pink Friday event for the legal and healthcare pathways for LGBTQ individuals.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I know that you are ambassador for Alongside,
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me, why did you become an ambassador for Alongside?
First of all, the founder of Alongside, Nick,
Yeah.
is one of my very good friends. And because of my legal background, so he invited me to a simulation for the AMD. So a little bit of my background, I work as a barrister in Hong Kong. Mostly I do criminal law. But then I also, but sometimes I would like join the LGBT events and whatsoever. And that's why Nick invited me to join the event of Alongside. And there I became the ambassador.
Once, like, hook you in, wheel you in.
yeah, a bit step by step. Yeah.
Can you tell me what is that simulation workshop? What is it?
Yeah, it's like there's a mannequin in the hospital setting, and I was one of the actors to be the boyfriend of the patient. So at the very critical moment, we need to make a decision for the patient because he's MIP. He cannot do any decision for himself, mentally incapacitated. And so basically the father and the mother would like to sustain the life of the patient. But as boyfriend, I want to end his life. There was kind of a conflict over there. But because without the AMD, no one has the final say somehow. So there was a little bit of struggle.
So just for the audience here, so MIP is mentally incapacitated person,
yeah.
right? And then the AMD is Advance Medical Directive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So earlier actually in our conversations with Nick and Alfred, on talking about advanced planning, they talk a lot about how the importance of communication and how we need to plan well in advance. So I think that simulation workshop really, I guess, showcase what would happen. The negative training materials, right?
Without
show.
that piece of document, for the people around the patient, we are unable to know the exact will. We cannot execute what you want. And usually that's where the conflicts come.
Yeah.
And also, I would say, as a lawyer, I feel like I'm a calm and a logical person. But when I was in that hospital kind of setting with the mannequin in front of me, with pulse, with limited breathing, I kind of feel like sentimental and emotional.
Yeah.
And when I get into the character and I start the conflict with the mom, with the dad, and that was awful. I would say. Powerless. I want to do a lot of things for my loved ones, but there is nothing I can do. And in real life, I think the situation would be even worse. So I would highly recommend, for anyone, deliver your will to, tell your will to the others, so that even when one day I'm unable to tell someone else, but for those who love me, they can execute what I want to do.
Yeah. So for you, that experience, you share your, how it felt for you. How does it change, for you, as a barrister in your professional life? Do you think that has an impact on the way you maybe not in the criminal, lawyer setting, but earlier we talked about, perhaps there's a lot of awareness raising that is required, or education sensitivity training, for the medical profession, for the legal profession, when dealing with, LGBTQ community, right? So for you, if participating in this kind of simulation workshop, do you think it would have an impact on how you were, if you were in a profession supporting LGBTQ community, would it make a difference for you in terms of?
Well, I think the workshop is quite impactful because when we see our clients, it's usually like a third person, or I'm discussing a case with you, you are the main character of your case. But in that workshop, I become the first person. So all the emotions all the emotions are so direct, so real. And I can stand into the shoes of that person. So when I further talk to clients, maybe in the future, or in my legal field, I would be more empathetic somehow. And I would say life is short, although we try to plan everything, but death could be so sudden, unexpected. So be prepared, and especially if you love the person around you, you need to communicate. You need to let him know or let her know your thoughts beforehand. So otherwise, things could go very nasty or complicated.
And you may not be able to let people know at that time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as what would you like to, like you say, today is actually part of Pink Friday event, and the celebration's been around for 10 years. And earlier, we kind of actually, some of the other guests have shared with us, the progress that have, taken place in the last 10, 15 years for Hong Kong, for the LGBTQ community. What would you like to see, for the future?
Yeah. I would say actually a lot of friends feel they're so stressed when they come out to different people, for example, to their family, their friends, to colleagues at work. I would imagine if someone say, hey, in 10 years' time, hey, Aaron, I have something serious to talk about. I want to come out to you. Then I would say, oh, okay. So I would like to say, I would imagine one day in Hong Kong, if coming out is so simple, so normal as if breathing, then that would be good. You don't need to make it so special.
So maybe we don't even have the word coming out. We just kind of
Exactly.
like, who is your boyfriend, who is whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Then that would be the most ideal picture in my mind.
That would mean, I guess, in this place where in a society we feel safe, we feel included, and there's really no difference, isn't it?
Yeah, so whenever someone say, hey, I want to come out to you, Aaron, I'm saying, well, fine.
Okay, let's move on.
Let's move on. Yeah, tell me something new maybe.
Okay, thanks a lot, Aaron. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Travis, for joining us on this Pink Friday event, on the legal and healthcare developments for LGBTQ individuals. Now, for those of you who don't know Travis, Travis is the Hong Kong U professor in sociology, as well as the founder for Grey and Pride, a NGO in Hong Kong that supports elderly LGBTQ individuals. So welcome again, Travis.
Thank you.
I heard that, Gay and Pie has been around for 10 years and you just celebrated your 10th anniversary in October.
Yes, it was a really special and meaningful event. We had about 150 audience coming over to celebrate our magic moment.
Wow, 10 years is very, very, not easy.
It's been a long time there.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit, the audience here a little bit, what is Grey and Pride, what does it do, what does it want to achieve, that sort of thing?
Well, Grey and Pride is the first and the only registered charitable organization in Hong Kong that look after the well-being of older LGBT plus community in Hong Kong. Our mission actually is to create a more inclusive and tolerant society where these older LGBT plus people can live without fear and prejudice.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, in the last 10 years, can you share with us maybe one most memorable experience you have, with the groups?
Yeah, I still remember because when I started Grey and Pride, it was 10 years ago. And then there were only 3 or 4 members, and then we usually had yum cha, the very typical Chinese tea,
dim sum.
Dim sum, in a Chinese restaurant in Sam Shui Bo. And after that, we just went to a volunteer's apartment, very, very small apartment. And then we just have a gathering and then shared about their lives. And then they would show their letters that they wrote, in the past when they were young, some love letters, and also share many different things related to their lives, in the past, right? And it was really intimate and small, kind of gathering. But then I felt the sharing was so important.
Like connection.
And also the connection between everyone. And then I felt strongly that they in some way encountered a lot of issues which were quite common. For example, they have the difficulty in coming out, forming intimate relationship, and have a more positive identity, and also they could not actually really fit into the LGBT community, which is very like youth oriented,
I
right?
see.
And also it's really hard for them to integrate with the mainstream social services because these kind of social services were usually very heteronormative or cisgender normative. Right, and then in some way they're very, very invisible to the public. Kind of like as like a hidden elderly population category, right? So I felt like I really wanted to do something.
Yep.
So that's why set up like Grey and Pride, and then just want to like get more people like to join us and then to connect with each other.
Yeah, so from 2 or 3 people to now you have 160.
Right.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. I think that was like the first moment like I felt really strongly that I wanted to do something, and also because like over the years like there's some of our members, they passed away, and then there was actually really heartbreaking for me, and then I really felt the the motivation to really want to do something for them.
So, I did a little bit of the math, right? Some people I read in the past that, maybe a conservative estimate, about 5% of the population is self-identify as LGBTQ+. And in Hong Kong, there's at least 20%, if not more, are 65 years and older already. And the projection is that by 2036, we will have almost 36%. That's like, even now, if you look at it, it means 1 in 100 person elderly, 65 plus, LGBTQ, So you was talking a little bit earlier already, that, they may have some special, needs or challenges, right, to fit in the mainstream or within the LGBT. Can you share with us a little bit more?
Yeah, well, like just what you said, like Hong Kong actually an aging society, right? And then I have kind of like a similar calculation. So for example, in 2023, I mean last year, and there were actually like 30% of the Hong Kong population actually aged 60 or plus. Right, and then it's expected to rise to 40% in 2066. So you can imagine, like there's a substantial number of population in Hong Kong is actually like talked about 60 plus, right? And then like you said about like 4%, but then there's like some other studies also suggest about like 2.5 or to 6%. I mean, even if we take a very, very conservative one, like even more conservative than you just talk about 4%. And then there's almost about like 60,000 in 2023 of older LGBT in Hong Kong. And then about
But you don't see them around.
No, they actually what we call like hidden elderly population. So there's actually like quite substantial number of like older LGBT in Hong Kong, right, which never really got any attention at all, by the society and also even by the LGBT plus community.
So what do you think, what are their needs, like unique needs or challenges? Are they being met,
Right. No, well, this, a little bit pity, like, because as I said, like, they are really like a hidden population, right? And then, as I just said, like, what I found like 10 years ago in some way, like, haven't really changed too much. So for example, like, they still have the problems of like coming out, forming intimate relationship. And then in my own understanding and research, I think more than half of the older gay men and lesbian, they actually married heterosexually, so they have their heterosexual spouse. And so it's really hard for them to come out, right? And then this is like one big issue. The second one, as I said, it's still the same, like, after 10 years, most of these older LGBT, they couldn't really fit into, the quite established like LGBT plus community in Hong Kong, right? But because like, the current LGBT plus community is still very youth oriented and ageism is quite serious, to be honest. And thirdly, it's like, it's really hard for them to get into or fit into the mainstream social services and medical services because it's really like heteronormative and cisgender normative. It's interesting, like, when I talk to these frontline practitioners, workers, social workers, and then there are actually two different senses of like cases. One is like they say, oh, well, Travis, like, we don't have this kind of people in our
really?
center, right? But then it's actually small in number. Most of the social workers that I talk to, they say, yeah, I know. Then, that so or that older woman, or some I think, they might be, but I don't know what to talk to them or how to talk to them. So in order not to offend them, I pretend I don't know. So I mean, in either way, they are actually being neglected, right?
I see.
Yeah. So I think this is a really huge service gap. And also finally, it's in the Hong Kong Asian policy, there's nothing to talk
Specific.
about specifically any needs or challenges about older LGBT plus community at all.
Yeah. So if I were just a social worker, I mean, I could imagine as I go, I will need to see a lot of doctors, right? Elderly care, social service. So if just for us normal people, how can what do I need to do to educate myself to help make it more inclusive?
Yeah, so that's why for Korean Pride, one major component for us to do is actually what we call train the trainer. Right? As I said, most of these social workers and frontline workers, they really want to help, right? But then they don't really have any knowledge about in general, the LGBT plus community, and specifically, they don't really know the unique challenges and needs about this older LGBT plus community. So that's why, we're now providing a lot of educational videos, and also we're going to different elderly centers and then to talk to these social workers in order for them to have a better understanding about this older LGBT plus community, and to understand more about their needs, their challenges, and everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you have the sky, the blue sky, what would be the ideal situation? I mean, if you talk about, 40% of the population, are going to be 65 plus, and, whatever number you get, it's still a significant chunk, right?
Well, our wish list, our ultimate goal, of course, is to set up a LGBT plus, older LGBT plus, caring service center that really cater, for the specific needs and challenges and everything, So it's a place, where they can live together, or they can come often and then to share their needs and then to support each other, to connect with each other. I think it's the ultimate goal. But in the meantime, I think what is really important is actually how to integrate with the mainstream social services and medical services. That's why, I just mentioned that, train the trainers is really important. So to that, the mainstream kind of service providers to know more about our community, and then they have a more sense of how to deal with them, to increase their sensitivity. I think this is really important.
I just want to know, you're saying, ideally we should have a, a rainbow nursing home,
right? Elderly rainbow, nursing home or service center, right?
That we can. But why do we need it? Would people say, why would you need a special treatment, for the?
Yeah, so that's why I said, this is in some way complement with what I just said, how to integrate with the mainstream, social service, right? I think ideally, of course, if we can nurture the society, which is very tolerant to different genders and sexualities, we don't really need to have a special kind of center for that, right? But then it has to be in the condition where most of these practitioners in the social service sector and also in the medical sector have that kind of awareness and sensitivity, right? Otherwise, this older LGBT, they wouldn't really go, or they wouldn't really come out, and then most of their needs and challenges will not be actually taken care of, right? So that's why we think about a specific rainbow service center for older elderly would be an option, right? For them to come over there, and feel more safely, and then to talk with each other, and then to get support. Yeah, so the two things is actually not contradict with each other, but rather supplement with each other.
Yeah, so ideally, there should really not be any different services.
No.
It's almost it's almost like creating the safe space, inclusive
Yes,
space.
like it's like you just like have you have any problem, like you just go to see a doctor, or like you go to see a social worker, you can just tell them like who you are.
Be authentic.
Yeah, you feel like comfortable to share about your problem, your challenges, and then like these medical professionals or like social workers, and then if they are like tolerant, and also sensitive to all genders and sexuality, they should provide like in love and supportive like advice to you. Right,
Yeah.
but then the situation is not like that right now.
I see.
Well, I'm not saying like there's still like some really good like medical doctors and also like social worker. They're very very sensitive, but generally speaking, they're quite
more conservative, or more the
large number
heteronormative.
of like they're still quite conservative and maybe even homophobic. Or
And it's
transphobic
hard when
and
you
all
are already, like you were saying, they are already married, and then they
Yes.
have, so
Yeah. So I think like what we call train the trainer is like one major component for Graham Pride now to do. Like it's really to educate the professionals. I think this is like something very important.
Yeah, that's great work. Thank you so much, Travis, for joining us today. And I don't know if there's anything you would like to tell the audience, about Graham Pride or supporting elderly LGBTQ.
Well, I mean like well, I just like we work together, and then we hoped to create a more diversified and tolerant society where people with different genders and sexualities can live without fear and prejudice.
一定係基佬啦咁，但係做基佬唔係一個好難嘅問題，因為而家咁開放咧，已經好多人接受我哋㗎啦，係咪？如果我哋有間同志護老院就更加好啦，係咪？將來我哋住喺裏邊嘅全部都係同志嘅，咁啊好開心啦！
無論你係咩年齡、階層，都可以加入我哋晚堂軒，比較會好一啲。有人可以幫到我去完成我將來去走完呢個人生嘅路程。